kids definitely made him more racist because he could look at what their innocence and they'd wonder why their blacks are treated so bad, and they didn't even understand it themselves. And that also made Atticus wonder, why are people black to them? They're so innocent. They're just like us. So I think his kids definitely helped highlight his unracist ways, I should say.
On page 281, the last page of the book, it talks about how, if you can't really judge someone until you see who they really are, get to know them, and I guess it summed up the whole book and how it talked about why Atticus wasn't racist, because he just believed that every person was the same and that each person should have an equal chance.
Said earlier in the book, not to kill a mockingbird. To kill a mockingbird, all they do is just are innocent and they just have music for us to hear. They just don't do anything to society. And I really feel like by the end of the book, Scout realized that Black African Americans, they don't do anything. They're just like mockingbirds. So.
Yeah, I thought that her views changed throughout the book because at first she was ashamed of Atticus, and she got made fun of at school for him being supporting the court case. But then as the book went on, she went to the court case and she sat in the African American side, and she gradually became less racist and supported her father.
And even in the beginning of the book, where the Cunningham kid came over, and she was so appalled that he was even in their house, to her at the end, where she felt a lot more comfortable around black people.
Yeah, I thought she was brought up with these people at school criticizing her for what her father's views were, and she's brought up like everybody else, think this way, think that way, go with the status quo. And then for her father to open her up to new ideas, it showed how being unracist is all about not believing that equality comes from when you're born.
I feel like we put in some symbolism there with the Dewey Decimal System, or the different system of reading. So that Atticus was teaching her ways to views on but that's symbolic was by reading. And those reading, she acquired better skill of reading than the people in her grade, who was following the norm the teacher said to read. And the people in her grade were all racist, and they didn't really get the meaning of life and how to treat other people. But then Scout, who was symbolic of the reading at home with Atticus, she knew how to treat other people and acquired viewpoints and opinions early on. So she didn't follow the status quo of reading with the schools. So I feel like Harper Lee wanted to show that if you follow the status quo, then you're not going to turn out so well. But then Scout didn't. So
I think that when that symbolism with following the status quo thing happened, I think that kind of shows what racism really is, because it's ignorance, and all the kids who followed the way that the teacher said, they were kind of just following what everybody else was doing, and that's what everybody else in the town was doing. They were just doing what their parents have been doing and what their parents have been doing by being racist. But Atticus had brought Scout up to be non-racist, and I think that kind of was shown to us.
I feel like Atticus is bringing up his kids, he never had that chance to not be racist, but now, since he's a parent that kind of has an influence over his kids, he's able to bring them up in a not ignorant way, and they can be like him. They can maybe spread that influence around.
I had a question on page 37, when Jem was talking about hot steams, and it says that Calpurnia says that's nigger talk. I was just wondering why Calpurnia would demote her race by calling them niggers, and she's African American. Can anyone clarify that?
I can't really clarify, but I also had a question that was similar towards that, because I noticed throughout the novel it kept saying it kind of referred to the word Negro as an adjective to describe people, because it said something like they said Negro smell, like clean Negro smell when they went to the church. It's on page 118, I think, and they use it to like describe things, or like they just automatically assume that if someone was a thief or a criminal that they were African American. So I know it's the same thing.
I think it's kind of like a preconceived notion that everybody has that all African Americans steal, all African Americans lie, and they can't like be trusted around women and stuff. And I think that even the African Americans had grown to accept that like she said, that the Negro wasn't as much as a type of person as an adjective to describe someone who like lies and steals, and I think that kind of shows the racist mentality.
Going back to what Christian said about clarifying how she denoted her own people, really, I feel like throughout the book, like whenever she went to her church, she was always described as speaking kind of like a black person would, and then when she would go back to Scout's house and Atticus's house, that she became more civilized, and so I almost feel like she's trying to fit in with the white society when she says that.
I agree with you. I feel like she's almost like not appalled, but she doesn't want to be going with the black because of the stereotypes that they have. As I said, on page 204 it says, Negroes lie, some Negroes are immoral, some Negro men are not to be trusted around women, black or white. And I think that she is brought up with this side from all the white people, like putting down Negroes, and they're always saying how bad they are. So she wants to fit in with their civilized people like Scout and her family.
Do you think that she's ashamed of her background for being black?
Not at all. Like, if anything, I think Capri is like very proud of it. Like, she has this, like, I don't know, like for something else like a reader, I noticed that she has this like confidence about her, and that she's like totally not ashamed of being black in a white household. Like when they asked her why she started talking like a black person, like she was talking and like a black person at church, and then she wasn't when she got home. She like explained to them. She's like, well, that's where I belong, and that's where I just, like should talk like that.
I think she's a good example of how not all black people are uneducated and are lying, stealing, and she was perfectly educated alongside Atticus as he was growing up, and she was able to raise Scout and Jem to be perfectly good white children, and she just kind of represents how even though you're African American doesn't mean that you're not uneducated and stuff.
Like she contradicts the stereotype.
Why do you think that she talked different to when she was talking to the other blacks from like when she was talking to Scout?
Well, she stated in the book that she would live life and she would be out of place. So I feel like she can really pull off that lifestyle switch. So I think she's proud of like her black culture, so because she still talks like in black language, but she also can talk white and educated. So I feel like that makes a difference.
I feel like she's living kind of a double life because she's when she's at church with all her black folks, she's talking in like a different context, a different way, and she usually talks around Scout, Jem, and Atticus. It's just in a different environment, so it's kind of like peer pressure and influences she gets from her friends. But like when she's around church lawyers, she's kind of very professional about it and talks in their language.
Imagine if she would have gone into the church and would have talked like a white person. Like she would be so out of place. She would be like basically putting herself above everybody else. Like so she has to talk. That's like she's basically like fitting in. Like if she would have gone in there and talked like a white woman, that wouldn't have been acceptable.
Yeah, I agree with that. If she were to talk like a white person, I feel like she would have been kicked out of that society.
I don't think it's like kicked out, but it's just like, I don't know, it's like a mental thing. Like, it's like they would be talking down. She'd be talking down to other people, and she's very humble. Like, she wouldn't be wanting to talk down to other people.
Yeah, I noticed like on Calpurnia's like attitude, like on page 94 when they found like the sick dog, Calpurnia was the only one that was just running to all the neighbors' houses and warning them. Like a neighbor, like when they were warned, they could have gone to other houses, but she was the only one that showed like her dedication, like her attitude. I really feel like Harper Lee was trying to show that about the African Americans, like they do nothing wrong, they're good.
Like, I think that when she does that, it kind of corrects, like, the racist stereotype of African Americans and how she can be a good person and help out others and be a nice mother role towards Scout and Jen, and she can still fit in with the rest of her society.
Like when Aunt Alexandra like wanted her to like say like make Calpurnia leave, Atticus was like, no, she's been here for so long. He like refused, and I think that like Aunt Alexandra was like saying like, oh, because she's black, she has to go. But Atticus
Why do you think Atticus and Aunt Alexandra have such different views if they've been brought up the same?
I really feel like it's like where you've been placed in society. Like Aunt Alexandria is rich, and I feel like she has a lot of stereotypes and biases made because she's rich, because she feels like she's a hierarchy and above everything else. So
I think
That's
it's like exposure, like the kind of knowledge you're exposed to. Like Aunt Alexandra, she's so ignorant, and her extreme views on black people, she won't allow any other type of talk. She'll be like, we will not go over to Calpurnia's house till it came around her, because she felt like it's just her views on society are different from Atticus, because Atticus has like an open mind, while she just, she really believes strongly that she doesn't like black people.
The Finches are, but when you were, Christian was saying about how maybe wealth would affect her views, but in Macomb, the Finches are like one of the more wealthier families. And I wondered if it was just like more based on like personality types, but it also shows just how wealth can affect you and also cannot affect you.
like in the novel on page 226, Jem is saying, there's 4 kind of folks in this world. There's the ordinary kind like us and the neighbors. There's the kind like the Cunninghams out in the woods, and the kind like the Ewells down at the dump and the Negroes. Like they realize, like Atticus may be white and like wealthy, but he certainly doesn't act like him.
I think that kind of has something to do with his job, being a lawyer. He's exposed to everyone, especially being the defender. He sees everyone and has to defend everyone, so he's kind of has to be open to their viewpoints to help defend them.
Looking at the
Frank, this is your last and final thought.
and I think the major concept would be you have instead of they have to know before they believe, and that was portrayed through Atticus and Scott.